Hey, I'm the cat toy lady. And today I'm doing another take on my most requested thing to build, cat towers. This tower is going to be a little bit more modern looking, and it's not going to be completely made out of just foam board this time. The base is going to be wood, and just in case you're thinking you don't have a saw, I actually have the store that I bought it from. Go ahead and cut it down to size for me. It's a free service. And just so you know what it is, I bought a 2 foot by 4 foot piece of OSB. It's the really cheap plywood. It was $4 and something cents, so we're just going to call it $5. Definitely hold on to the scrap that you're not going to be using today. Who knows, maybe I'll find another project to make with it. And I haven't cut just 1 foot off of it, so it's a 3 foot by 2 foot piece. And these next pieces I'm going to show you that you don't necessarily need. You can decorate it however you'd like. I'm going to show you the basic design of how to make it, and then how I'm sprucing it up to put scratchers on it and change it up a bit. So I do have a pile of cardboard cat scratchers from the dollar store, and to be able to put on the top of each shelf, I have the front door mats from the Dollar Tree that cost, again, just $1. I bought 4 to work with. And I have an idea for one of my scratching poles that's going to be on here, of putting the meow part on it. So we'll get to that in a bit. First, we need to build the cat tree. So I've been goofing around with a design app, so you can kind of see what it looks like here. It's going to end up being 60 inches tall, so like 5 feet. It's going to have 4 different shelves to it. The top shelf is going to have one of the clear bowls that I've used in other projects, like the spaceship I made. I'm going to secure it in the top, that way you can be able to see your cat all curled up inside in their little toe beans. The second level will have a little hiding nook for them, a little cat house, and I'm going to be making the poles into scratchers. I do have a pile of foam board to be able to work with. There's 22 sheets right here. I'm not exactly sure how many it'll be in the long run. I just separated 22 out of my pile, and at the end I'll tell you exactly how many I'm using. So let's get started. I'm going to walk you through all of it. So we're starting with the side walls. They're going to be 2 foam boards high. And what we're going to do, that way they stay rigid and won't want to try to break in the middle, is we're going to stagger them, where we'll have 2 solid pieces on one side with a solid sheet in between them and 2 halves on the top and the bottom. So I have 4 foam boards to be able to make one of the side walls. We're going to take just one of those pieces and cut it in half down the long side. So this is 30 inches. We're going to cut it at 15 inches or thereabouts. And just a quick tip, when dealing with foam board, they're not always exactly 20 by 30 inches. They can be anywhere from an 1/8 to a 1/4 inch off. So on this one, I'm just going to find the exact middle. Just like that. Now I'm going to start gluing one of those half pieces to the bottom of one of the pieces. And I'm going to make sure that the sides are lying parallel. I am using my low temp glue gun. Do not use hot glue on foam board. It causes it to puff up and it'll just swell instead of actually gluing together. So I have my dual temp glue gun. It does hot or low temp. I have it on low. And a trick to doing this, because you are working with a lower temperature, it cools off a whole lot quicker. Use it in steps. If you try to do too much too quickly in too large of an area, your glue is going to cool off before you actually get to be able to stick it to anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a few blobs of glue. I like to do big blobs, that way there's more contact versus little strings of it where you don't know how well they're really going to touch. Then once I know it cools, I'm going to go around the edge, sticking my glue gun in, and then press the pieces together to be able to glue the outside pieces. I'll show you what I mean. Now I'm going to flip this over, make sure everything lines up. Use my fingers to be able to feel that the edges are lining up. And then just press really firmly in the middle. I like using my body weight. You do, when using foam board, have to hold it for a while. It does not cool off quickly. It's going to hold the heat. So you can see here that there's a gap going all along the edge. I'm going to do the same blobs, but I'm going to put a blob at each corner and then probably 3 in between. And then I'm going to press and hold that together. Any glue that starts to come out as it cools, you can just peel it right off. Then I'm going to put a big blob of glue right here on this corner, and then 2 more dots. Now glue the third side. Don't forget that inner seam. I'm going to stick my glue gun under there and put 3 more dots. So anytime that we glue any large panels together, this is the method we're going to use. I'm not going to bore you and show you all the details every time. I'm just going to tell you to glue it together. Okay, so using that same glue technique, we're going to put glue on this half. And then we're going to take one of the full sheets and place it on top. When you do, don't worry about this seam right here just in case you didn't cut things exactly straight. Just worry about your sides staying parallel to each other. We don't want them to be bending at any angles. I'm not going to be able to get my glue gun right underneath the edge so easily. 9 dots in the center and on that edge with the other seam. And I'm taking another full sheet and setting it on top. So on one side you're going to see 2 full panels that are not cut side by side. On the other side, as you can see, there's a whole piece in the middle, a half, and I'm about to glue that last half onto that top spot. So you can see here, there's just a little bit of a gap. I'm going to go through on these side panels, anywhere that I see even the tiniest bit of gap, I'm going to wedge some glue down in them. I can even use my finger to smear on top to help force it in. I don't want that to be a weak spot for the foam board underneath the seam to be able to bend. So I'm going to fill in wherever I can to help discourage that from happening. Any glue on the top just rolls right off. And since we're using the low temp glue gun, no blisters. Once all of this is cool and has been lying flat, just go ahead and set it to the side and make a second one exactly like this. We need 2 of these. Now we have to start making our shelves. I want them to be able to sit and harden up, so I want to go ahead and get them done. They're going to be 2-layer thick, and as I'm gluing them together, I'm going to glue whole sheets together. But in a little bit, when I find out the exact measurement that I need, we're going to end up trimming off a couple inches of this. But for this, I'm going to do that same dot technique, making 9 dots in the middle. Then once the 2 sheets have been pressed together and cooled, I'm going to go around the edge again, just like we did before, but I'm going to leave one end unglued. Once we make that cut, then I'll go ahead and glue it together. Now we need to start making our poles. We need to make 6 of them that are 15 inches tall. So what I'm going to do is take one of my pieces of foam board on that 30-inch side, going ahead and cutting it down the middle, making 2 pieces that are both 15 inches tall. Remember, they're not always exactly 30 inches. Mine's just a hair off, so I'm just going to find the exact center. Now we're going to be working with one of the halves at a time. Going along one side, I'm going to mark every 2 inches, and on inch number 8, I'm going to put a bigger line just so I know that that's one of the lines that I cut on, and then I'm going to do it again. Every 2 inches, I'm going to make a mark, then at 16 inches, I'm going to make another longer mark, like that. Flip it around, measuring from this side every 2 inches. That way everything lines up. We are going to do the same thing. Just like that. I'm going to go ahead and cut where those bigger lines are, making 8-inch wide panels that are 15 inches long. And then where your little marks are, I'm going to use that as my guide again. This time I'm not cutting all the way through. I'm just going to do a light score through the top sheet of paper that sits on the foam. Just barely cutting through. And on those lines, I'm going to be able to put my thumb on the back side of them with the lines on top, and I'll be able to just fold it right at each of the lines. So on all 3 lines. Okay, I use my hands. And ideally, as long as you cut and measured everything evenly, you should be able to shut this just like a set of doors where they match up perfectly. We are making 6 of these. So it's going to take a full sheet and a half. So go ahead and make your 6. Once you get all your pieces cut and scored, we are going to take a piece of tape, run it on the inside of what we would be considering the doors of this. Run it on the inside of one piece, fold it down and then set the other piece directly on top. That way we can tape it together into a square. Watch. So I'm just going to run my tape. It doesn't have to go all the way to the edge, but pretty close. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of shut this door together. And then I'm going to run my hands all the way down both sides of it to make sure that tape is sticking firmly. Then once it's taped together, you just pop it open and we have the squares that we need to be perfect supports. Now go ahead and tape just that same way the other pieces. Pick a card, any card. For this one, we're going to be using that full 30 inches. So on that 20-inch side, we're going to be measuring 2 inches. Then from that 2 inches, I need to go 6 more inches. So we're going to put a line at 8. Then another 2 inches from there at 10. And then from there, we're going to do another 6 inches. So 16. We're going to mark the opposite end the exact same way too. So at that 16-inch mark, we're going to go ahead and cut our foam board all the way through. And we'll just go ahead and put this little piece to the side. And like we did the little panels, we're going to go ahead and do just that light scoring just through the paper, not the foam itself, making those score marks to where our panels are going to be 2 inches, 6 inches, 2 inches, and 6 inches. Then once you've made your marks, bend on those lines just the same way, with the lines facing down, and pull back. I do like to use my thumbs as leverage. It just makes it a little easier, less chance of bending. Like that. And we're going to use that same closing technique to be able to put the tape inside. And there we go, we have a rectangle shaped column. So the last of the big pieces to be able to cut are going to be the walls of the little house part. So this piece just has to be able to be cut in half again at 15 inches on that 30-inch side, just like we've done before. Now in one of these pieces, we're going to put a hole in the center of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and find the exact middle. So there's my middle. There's lots of different ways to be able to cut your circle. I've shown it in different videos. You can put a bowl down that's the right size that you want. I myself go for between 7 to 8 inches for an opening for a cat hole. My biggest baby's about 17.5 pounds, so I try to make them more like 8 inches each time. And of course, you can always use any type of compass. Today, I have a little cheat tool. This is just a circle cutter. It's going to cut through the top layer and just kind of show me where I need to go. Then I'll use my X-Acto to cut the rest. So this one, you just set your piece down over the center, push really hard in the middle, and then drag this around. I'm not sure if you can see it all too well, but there's my center. Now I'm just going to cut on that same line. Woo! I love doing that. So there we go. So I want things to be symmetrical, and I want to be able to go ahead and cut my shelves so I can get everything glued together. So what I need to do is I need, on that base piece of wood, I need to go ahead and measure exactly how long it is, and then on my side panel, I need to measure exactly how long that is. That way I don't have any of that overhang past this point. I want my columns to be able to line up perfectly. So here's my math. So we're going to take 3 out of the 4 of the shelves that we already glued together. Remember, we had that one end that we left open. We are going to cut that end off, and we're going to make the shelf 71 centimeters on both sides of it, remembering which side is your open end, and then cut that piece off. We're done with these pieces. Now we're just going to put our glue dots inside, just like we did before. Do this to those other 2 shelves. So for this last piece, we're going to be working on this very top level. We know that this going across is 51 centimeters, so we're going to use that, but we need some overhang. That way our shelf won't just fall in, we'll actually sit on top of our side panels to be able to give it some extra support. And because these double thick pieces are a centimeter thick each, we're going to make this panel 51 centimeters by 53 centimeters. And now we're going to cut it down to size. Now that we have this cut, I want to go ahead and cut out the circle for this punch bowl to be able to sit. It's just a punch bowl from the Dollar Tree. I want it to fit nice and snug, so I'm not measuring the outside of the lip, I'm actually going to measure the inside of it. And it's 10 3/4 inch. So I'm going to find the center of this piece, just like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. And it's out. There we go, fits perfectly. So I'm going to turn the bowl upside down and run a bead of glue all the way around, and then set this on top and press down till it cools. Don't be afraid to put a lot of glue this time. Any glue that comes down and looks messy, we can clean up later. Just set it down and push down all the way around. We're going to cut one more circle out. It's going to be for that second shelf up, for it to sit in the right spot. We know that the center of the side panels are 25.5 centimeters from measuring before. So I'm going to find 25.5 centimeters up from one of the edges. And that's going to be the center of our circle. And use whatever method you want to cut your circle. Again, I'm doing 8 inches. Perfect. Let's start assembling. To make it easy, I'm going to start it laying down and just build on one side of it. So I'm going to start with adding one of my supports. I'm going to run it even with this side wall right here at the back and the bottom. So I'm just going to put some glue. Again, I like to do blobs to make sure it holds better. Using my fingers to make sure everything stays lined up. Easiest way to do this is line it up, top and bottom, and then fold it flat. And you can put lots of contact pressure on it. Add a second one on the other side. And I think I forgot to tell you, I am running the 2 full pieces that make our large sidewalls on the outside. And on the inside, I'm going to hide the extra seams of that half piece that's on the top and the bottom. Now I'm just going to set this piece to the side for a second. And I'm going to take that first level and 2 of my supports and glue them on one of the short sides, lining up again with the corner edge. Remember, you have to go really quickly with the low temp gun. If you go too slow, it may look like your glue is bonding, but it's not, and your tower is just going to fall apart. You don't want to spend all this time for that to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and run glue all the way around, and then set my piece down, making sure my edges stay lined up perfectly, and hold it till it cools. To give it extra security, just on the inside pieces where it's going to be more hidden, I'm going to run a seam of glue at the edge, and in the corner, and on the edge again. Now we're going to go ahead and glue on the second leg. And then I'm going to run that bead of glue again. I almost forgot a couple of pieces. I know, you're shocked, right? These 2 columns that are going to be 30 inches by 2 by 2s. Just like we did for the other columns, I'm going to mark every 2 inches with a bigger mark every 8 inches, knowing where to cut. Then I'm going to cut along the lines. Once you have the 2 8-inch panels, go ahead and do that light scoring again every 2 inches. Once you have your scores, go ahead and just bend them like you did before, and put tape on the inside of it so you can close it together. There you go, a nice 2 by 2 by 30 inches. Go ahead and finish that second one. Now we're going to take that last plain shelf, one without holes, and on one side we are going to put our 15-inch, and on the other we're going to go ahead and glue those 2 other columns we just made that are 30 inches. Just the same way we did before. The last of the little pieces that I'm putting together, that shelf that had the hole in it, and your 6 by 2 piece that you made. And then I'm going to put this column dead center, but flush with that outer edge. And then I'm going to run the bead of glue all the way around, except from that back flush wall. So let me get this cleaned up real quick. Let's finish it. So to figure out exactly where this panel needs to sit, how much wood needs to overhang on each side of it, I just subtracted the 91 centimeters by the 51 centimeters that it is. So that gives me 20 centimeters on each side that I need to find. So just like that. Then on both these lines, I know it's going to be 53 centimeters wide total, because remember we measured that top piece. So I need to mark that out centered. So you can see here, I have my marking, so I know exactly where everything needs to sit on the bottom piece now. So I'm sure you saw the correction at the beginning when I said to make 6 of the 2x2s. Instead, you're going to take that last half sheet and you're going to end up making 8 of them. It's just going to give us a little bit of extra support. So on both side panels, you're going to end up gluing the same way, those 2x2s, right onto it. So I'm going to run glue quickly around the 2 squares and a big blob going down all the way in the middle. Then I'm going to take this, and in between the lines, lining it all up just as I had it, I will set it here. And the same with the columns. Once it dries, I'm going to go back around it all and put a seam of glue all the way around the entire thing. Now I'm going to repeat it just on the other side. Now again, moving really quickly, as quick as your glue gun will let you. So make sure you let it come back to full temperature after you do each section. We're going to run glue on all 4 of the 2x2s. On the top of them, we're going to end up gluing the piece that has the 2 15-inch legs to the top of this. Let me show you how it's going to sit. The legs are going to come right to the edge of the bottom, and we're going to glue those at a different time. Once you put that glue down and you make sure that this is glued into place, then we can slightly lift up and put glue underneath both these legs. Then press it down. Do it to both sides. Now we're going to be adding that cat house. We're going to glue the one with the hole where we had this front ledge, and then our blank one will be the back wall. So I'm going to quickly run glue down both of these short edges and then stick it into place. I'll press the walls together to help the glue make contact, and then once it cools, I'll go back on the inside and run another seam of glue. Okay, so here's it from the other side. I am going to run glue along the bottom seam of it, and the side walls right here on that first level, I'm going to run glue there too. You glue the back on just the same way as the front. Now we put the shelf in that has that hole and the 6-inch piece. It does have just a little bit of wiggle room at the bottom, so what I'm going to do, I cut a piece that will fill in the bottom to encase it for stability, and then I'm going to give it a little wedge of 2 pieces underneath. This happens just because that foam board isn't cut exactly to 30 and 20 inches. No big deal. There, all fixed. Now to glue this piece on, I'm going to just do one side at a time. So I'm going to run a bead of glue down the back side and set everything in place, and then I'll glue the front. I'm going to run a seam of glue underneath and reach through the hole on the inside. Now for the front, I can just slightly lift up, put my glue down, and then seal it right back up. Then I'm going to reach right back through and run a bead on the inside. Now this piece, we're going to slide it in to make sure it fits. So I'm going to run glue along the bottom of these and glue them right into place, and then I'll turn it around and do the other side. Then I'm going to run a bead of glue around it too. Now I'm just going to lift it up a little, run glue right underneath. Now I'm going to be running a bead of glue on the inside of each of these flaps, right up here. Now I'm going to run a seam of glue on the top and the bottom where I just glued. We need to go back and glue at the very bottom here. I'm just going to push it back a little out of the way, put a few blobs of glue, slide it forward and set it down. Then I'm going to run a bead of glue all the way around that seam. Last piece! Alright, figure out which is your longer side, and then making sure the longer side is going this direction. Set everything on top you're going to run a lot of glue along this top edge, only on one side, and then set it down. Then you're going to go around to the other side and run a bead of glue on it too, and press it down. Once it cools, go back in on the inside and run a really thick seam of glue on both of these top edges. So here's the back side, all done. The front side. You got a good sized kitty cat house. Like I said, my baby is 17.5 pounds. She needs some good space. And what's neat about this is basically a canvas. You can do whatever you want with it. I'm going to show you how I'm going to decorate it, but you can do whatever you'd like with it. So I pulled out all the good stuff to be able to decorate it with. I just wanted to let you know that I used 21 pieces of foam board, which means that's $21, and then the wood was just under $5, so I'm just going to call it $5. So basic materials were $26 to make this scratcher. 26 bucks is pretty darn cheap, and it's as tall as me. So I'll walk you through some of the materials I'm going to be using on here. I am using every texture that my cats love. One, I have a mini feather boa that I happen to have left over that I'm going to attach. Then I have a package of tissue paper, dollar store, that I'm going to wrinkle up and throw inside as kind of like the padding inside the cat house. It holds heat, they love attacking it. It's going to be multi-purpose. Then I have a giant piece of felt that's really well woven together that I'm going to use with some batting underneath to cover these skinny poles on this side. Remember all those carpets I had? I'm going to cut the round part off and just cut them straight, and then cut them to fit to cover the shelves. It'll take 2 per shelf. Then, for my long sides, I'm going to do 2 different textures on them. One, I'm going to stack scratchers up on the side. Then also for the side, I'm going to be using some of that thin batting underneath to fluff it up. I have pleather. I'm sure many of you know your favorite couch has been clawed to death. Cats love the texture of pleather and leather. Then another dollar store find. I am going to take, centering it where it says meow, I am going to run carpet down the front of it. It won't go all the way to the bottom, but it's okay. And then I'm just going to wrap it around, gluing it on. I think that'll be really cute down the side of it. Then last but not least, I have this neat piece of woven fabric. It has almost a tweed feel to it, a little bit thicker of a tweed. I think it is made to be business suit material. And I'm going to use this to cover the wood. So I'm going to get started. You don't need a lot of detail on this part, so let's just zoom through it so you can see what it turns out to look like. Voila, it's done. I have scratchers that are cardboard on this side. And as we spin it around, I have carpeted these levels. You can see the front has my meow to be able to scratch on, and the base is covered in that tweed. This side is all pleather, top to bottom, so if the kitty cats want to crawl all the way up, they can. Then on this side, we have the feather boa to play with. I did glue it all the way underneath. We now have nice felt scratchers all up and down that can also be climbed on. Tissue paper on the inside. Our nice bowl, that way we can see our little toe beans and our bellies. I'd love to know how you'd go ahead and decorate this. Would you do the same thing, or would you stick to a theme of one type of scratcher? Make sure to check out my Instagram and Facebook. That's where you're going to be able to find pictures and videos of my cats using all the different stuff that I make. Okay, so I did end up adding some supports, just a little arches so I could still see the bowl, just so nothing would sag in the middle. So my 17.5-pound cat likes the bowl. She's just a little big for it. So this is what we get. Back feet and belly with a prop up. And if you're curious about the other things that I can teach you how to make, check out these videos. And of course, hit that subscribe button. Now go make your cat some toys.